So how did One Piece go from this to this? Well, it's obviously because Oda is a misogynist and a racist. Wait, hold on, back up for a sec. I love One Piece. It has some of my favourite world building in any story I've ever seen. However, one of the biggest attractions I and many others have is One Piece's diversity. On the surface, it's a silly claim, because how can a show that has fairies, giants, fishmen, mermaids, and even furries have little diversity? Well, let me tell you why the world of One Piece is not as diverse as you think. So one of the biggest critiques of Oda, the writer of One Piece, is the representation of women, especially when it comes to the beauty standard. The representation is very black and white. Each woman is put into two categories, either beautiful or ugly, and the easiest way to tell if someone is meant to be beautiful is something I call the Nami test. If you look like Nami, congratulations, you are beautiful. On a side note, I can't even blame Oda for this. He literally found his wife at a Nami cosplay. Tangent aside, throughout One Piece, there is a remarkably homogenized look between all females. Essentially, they all look the same. They have the same face, eyes, lips, nose, body figure, with little variation between any of them. While there is nothing inherently wrong with how Nami, or even how everyone else is drawn, because real women in the real world do look like this, it is just the only representation we really see, because 99.99% of women don't look like this. The impossible body figures make Sydney Sweeney look like Amy Schumer, because they all have big buzzwinkers and big gyats and small waist and a perfect face. I know what you're thinking. It doesn't matter. It's a cartoon. It can have women at these proportions. And in fact, there are females that look completely different. But on the flip side, as I mentioned earlier, is ugly. This is the second representation of women. If you don't conform to the very narrow definition of beauty in One Piece, congratulations, you are an ugly duckling. So when there is diversity, such as Big Mom, Lola, Suru, Kokoro, and others, they are portrayed as being cartoonishly ugly. So we either have hyper beautiful women or anything else, and this otherness is portrayed as not being desirable. So there is basically no in between. You're either this or a very thin, very narrow view of attractiveness. The only time there has been diversity is during Amazon Lily, but that was only one arc where Oda was basically forced to, so it's easy to differentiate between the women. This is partly the reason I am saying there is a lack of diversity in One Piece. One of the craziest things that showcase this is that you can have a country with predominantly brownish men, Alabasta, but the beauty standards are still the same. I just find it a little crazy that you have Vivi, who has so much more fairer skin than everyone else in Alabasta. She is another one that looks just like Nami, but has no reason to be looking like Nami. While you can definitely cope and say she's a princess, perhaps she doesn't go outside so she has fairer skin. To that I say, have you even watched Vivi? She wasn't the sheltered princess archetype seen in other media. The reason why Vivi looks the way she does is because I think it reflects Oda's subconscious, where fairer skin, thin waist, large bazookas are seen as being attractive. So even in a country where the beauty standard should be different, Vivi is just a blue hair Nami. I know certain fans would probably say One Piece has a thing where if someone follows their dreams, they generally become more attractive, which is a popular fan theory after Oda drew the Straw Hats in an alternate timeline where if they follow their dreams, they stay beautiful, and if they don't, they become ugly. But this just isn't true, because there are attractive people who barely followed their dreams or beliefs, like Reiju, Khalifa, Charlotte Smoothie, Viola, etc., and even vice versa. The real reason, or at least my theory, is that I think Oda just likes drawing characters he finds attractive, which, you know what, I don't blame him for. It's just a very thin, very narrow definition on beauty. And I think it sucks, because you could definitely make the argument Oda has done a lot for female representation in One Piece, because it is a lot more progressive than many other shows. There are countless shows and animes where a female character only exists in orbit around the male protagonist. Pretty much every main character that's female has their own agency outside of Luffy. Even Boa Hancock has her own agency. So One Piece is a world full of a shocking amount of races, from giants to fairies. It has it all. Or does it? No, it does not. For a show in which the characters travel country to country, island to island, there is a shocking amount of little diversity when it comes to skin tones. Other shows and animes can get a pass, but One Piece is a show where they are literally travelling across the world. We have an island full of transgender women, mermaids, and giants, but an island with humans with different skin tones is too much. The closest we have seen is Alabasta and Dressrosa, but both of them are predominantly white countries that have princesses that are just a reskinned army. This is why I think the racism metaphor between, let's say, the fishmen or celestial dragons falls short. Because firstly, there's heavy anti-racist themes, but there are not many people with different skin tones. And secondly, the species racism just means humans are just a bunch of hegemonized people, and it makes the show feel simplified and surface level, especially since the humans are not that, because each island is very different and unique. While the metaphor for racism is not as bad as something like Zootopia, I do think it's a little hypocritical for the reasons I have mentioned. So the reason I think it is token diversity is that while there are women with different looks and people with different races, I don't think there is enough. And to be fair, I think being criticised for token diversity is better than being criticised for no diversity, which is pretty much any other anime. It's just for a show that has been airing for almost 30 years and where the characters have literally travelled across the world, you would expect a bit more. So while One Piece is a great show, I don't think it's a perfect show, but no show is. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. I'm a pretty small channel, so it would mean a lot and give me extra motivation to keep uploading.